Hi guys, so many of you don't know this, but in my first YouTube channel, New York Nadia, I covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial here in New York City for my community. There wasn't a lot of media in there. We weren't allowed to bring any smart or electronic devices in there, including smartwatches or anything else. So it was basically a pen, paper, and just writing everything down. And what I would do is in the morning before I would go in, I'd do a live on YouTube. And then in the afternoon break, I would communicate with everybody and let everyone know exactly what was going on inside the courtroom. And then I'd hurry back home at night and do another live and just recap everything that I had seen and heard, because there really wasn't a lot of, I don't know, in depth, I guess, reporting. It was all kind of like surface level. When I first started journaling that and I didn't know what to expect. I really did it for my community because everyone started asking me like, "Oh, could you please go?" And at first, I thought that that's all it was, that I was just going to, report and do what my community needed me to do because I am here in New York City and I had accessibility. And so I said, okay, I'll do whatever you guys need. I didn't realize how that trial was going to affect me. As I heard the testimony, at the time there were 4 women that were testifying, and, they were all going by aliases except for one, and, it was a lot. And as I've said before, you guys know I was in the military and I've done some stuff, but it was a lot, and I didn't realize how their first person accounts and actually seeing them, these women, and it was palpable. It's one thing to read about it, but it's another thing to actually be there when someone is recounting it and you can understand the damage that was done. My mom says to me, Nadia, I want you to realize that she could walk. And I said, Mom, I know it's not a big deal. I get it. I know she can walk. I'm not here to change the world. I'm just here to report. She said, okay, but I see you getting very involved. And I just want you to keep in mind that there's a great possibility that she will walk. And there was a part of me that thought that I was fine with that. I hadn't realized how much this trial had affected me until that very moment, until Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty. And so I say that to preface what I'm about to tell you with that so that you understand why this is so important to me. This situation isn't because I have, Trump derangement syndrome or whatever else. No, this whole Epstein thing mattered to me before I knew Trump was involved. Now that he is involved, I mean, this is just a lot of the stuff that I've read now that the new files have been released recently and going through these files, a lot of this stuff I heard firsthand. Now reading it, it's a lot, but I can tell that it's for whoever actually took these interviews, it was a harrowing experience because just reading them, understanding what I understand, having actually heard these women talk, it's horrific. It's just horrific. The fact that Trump has shown up in these files at all is bad enough. The way that he's shown up is much worse. And I believe as an American citizen that this needs to be taken care of. There needs to be justice. And these men and women need to be held accountable to the highest courts because what they have done and all the crimes that they are implicated in need to be researched, need to be investigated. And if they are found guilty, they need to be punished to the extent of the law. And there needs to be a precedent for this. And we need to put that message out that this will not be tolerated in this country or any country. Because I'm sure as more and more information starts coming out and more people go through these files, more and more names will be exposed and governments will be pressured to act. And that is our right and that is our obligation as citizens of whatever nation that we're a citizen of. But the files that were taken out of the Epstein files, particularly one woman who gave her testimony, she was interviewed 4 times by the FBI. So clearly, they thought what she was saying was relevant or at least that had enough information that they needed to follow up on. And many of you have already heard about this kind of explicit when she met Donald Trump through Jeffrey Epstein and her experience with him, and he assaulted her, physically assaulted her. She recounts that, but there's something else in here that she recounts that I think is very important because she names other people involved, where they worked, how they were involved. Now, I'm going to read you what she wrote. So we're going to do this together. And you guys, I'm going to leave the files down below so you can read this for yourself. The reason that this is so important, her testimony is so important, is because by exposing other men who were involved in other crimes, such as embezzlement, these are all ways to get the bigger fish. Because once we know who was doing what, that can be investigated. And as we all know, these people get deals, right? If you can provide information that somebody bigger than you was doing something even worse, then we'll give you a lighter sentence, we'll take it easy on you or whatever. And yeah, that's not a great, workaround for the legal system, but it's what we have available. And if these names that she mentioned can be used in that way, if they can be investigated and used in that way, then I'm all for it. And I think that this might be the cracks in the case that will actually break this thing wide open. So let's get into it. Okay, so I'm not sure which way I am reading this. I'm not sure if this was the first interview. I think it was the second. But I'm just going to read through it. I'm going to leave out the other stuff. You guys could read that for yourselves, but I want to get to the meat of it, right? So in this unclassified, so it's 31E and Y 3027571. At the start of the interview, blank advised. So her name is redacted, but the redaction is extremely small. So I'm assuming it can only be one letter, one or two letters. I'm not familiar with anyone's name who's only one or two letters long. So I'm assuming that they just used the first letter of her first name. So I'm just for the sake of argument, I'm going to call her A because it's the first letter of the alphabet. It's not because I know anything or I think anything. It's just because for the sake of clarity, for the sake of being able to go through this a little bit quicker. So we'll just call her A. At the start of the interview, A advised she now felt comfortable enough to provide details regarding the abuse she suffered at the hands of not only Jeffrey Epstein, but also certain individuals associated with him. She advised that she met Epstein, referred to as Jeff, by blank through fraud and misrepresentation, and that he and others took advantage of her mother. A stated that Epstein blackmailed her mother through explicit photographs of A, which resulted in her mother embezzling from her real estate company to pay him. A stated that her mother, quote, tried to buy back the photos and secrets over the years. A man named Jim Atkins, that's JIMATKINS, is how it's spelled on the document. And then in parentheses, it says phonetic, a friend/associate of Epstein. Again, in parentheses, background of relationship unknown, participated with Epstein in blackmailing A's mother. A described Atkins as a white male with gray hair, quote, big ears, and a hairy body. Atkins was possibly in his 50s in the early 1980s and lived in Ohio. Atkins was somehow associated with an Ohio university, parentheses, unidentified. He may have been the dean or the, quote, money guy at the school at the time. Atkins either owned or rented a residence on blank island. Now, I don't know what island. I'm assuming it's Rhode Island. I don't know too many places that are called island. So you guys let me know in the comments what island you think this is, what place that they're talking about here. But we go on. Atkins either owned or rented a residence on blank island. where he stayed when he came to see the island. A stated that the home she and her mother lived in on the island would not have been nice enough for Atkins to stay in because apparently Atkins and her mother were having a relationship. But according to her, their home wasn't nice enough for him to stay in. That's what I'm understanding. A met Atkins not long after Epstein uh, began assaulting her. She estimated she met him when she was approximately 14 or 15 years old and recalled meeting him in her mother's office. However, she did not know why he was in her mother's office initially. A could not recall how her mother and Atkins were originally introduced. Atkins came off as a, quote, rich, derogatory word, who would throw his weight around and talk about money. He would expect people to respond immediately to him. Atkins was a pervert and looked at A like she was a, quote, piece of meat. He developed a romantic relationship with A's mother, who he claimed he loved, but A's mother appeared annoyed with him at times. They dated for approximately a year, and Atkins would fly on and off the island to see her. So that's a lot of information about this gentleman named Jim Atkins. A ton of information. He's in his 50s and the 80s. He had gray hair. He was either the dean or I guess the registrar or something at Ohio University. This is a lot of information. He had a home possibly in Rhode Island or some island, and he had a romantic relationship with this real estate woman, A's mother, who owned her own real estate company. Okay, so now we go on. He was rude to A and her brothers. He had a short temper and he was a drinker. A's brother, blank, name redacted, would recognize Atkins. A recalled seeing Epstein and Atkins together at least once at Epstein's house. She recalled it was most likely at the second house she knew him to live in while he resided on blank island. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. Maybe I'm out of the loop, but I don't know what island this is. Now it gets better. Atkins and his accountant, BLACKMAIL, named Cecil, last name unknown, assisted A's mother in fixing her real estate books so that she could embezzle funds and pay Epstein. This is very interesting because this can actually be corroborated. There's a lot of information here, a ton. And I know there's a ton of people watching this right now who know how to do these types of investigations. I myself have started one as well. But we can work on all this together. I think the more the merrier, and we can get to the bottom of who these people actually are. And if this man, Jim, and this other guy, Cecil, know and they were embezzling A's real estate mother, then they would know some other stuff too. And maybe there's some type of investigation that would bring out criminal allegations and prosecutions. And at that point, then they would be willing to talk. I continue. At some point, Atkins and A's mother had a falling out, and Atkins, Epstein, and possibly Cecil turned A's mother's in to the real estate commission by providing her accurate real estate book/records. A's mother was sent to prison for a period of time for embezzlement, and she was not able to pay the restitutions ordered. A was not aware of the blackmailing when it began to occur. Her mother informed her late into the process that they were in trouble, that she had seen photographs of A, and that she was paying people money. A recalled calling Atkins at the school where he was employed to ask whether he could help A and her mother. Prior to A meeting Epstein, her mother had been sober. A advised that the threat must have been very real because her mother was a very strong woman and it affected her substantially. After Epstein blackmailed her, A's mother began to drink alcohol again. And would you blame her? And now we get to the famous part. A recalled at least one incident in which Epstein took her off the island when she was between 13 and 15 years old. He drove her and or flew her to either New York or New Jersey. She was, quote, introduced to someone with money. It was Donald Trump, end quote. So that was her exact quote. She was, quote, introduced to someone with money. It was Donald Trump, end quote. A and Epstein were with others, to include Trump, in a very tall building with huge rooms. Trump did not like A, quote, from the get-go. He didn't like that I was a boy girl, end quote, referencing a tomboy. So apparently at this time, I mean, she was only 13, 15. She wasn't very feminine, or she was a kid, basically. So Trump, according to her, did not like that. They could not recall the identities of the other individuals present. However, they all exited when Trump asked everyone to leave the room. Trump mentioned something to the effect of, quote, let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be, end quote. Then he went on to assault her. She fought back physically. And Trump, I'm just reading what it says, you guys, okay? Trump struck A and said words to the effect of, quote, get this little the hell out of here, end quote. A advised that she bit Trump because he disgusted her. He had money, quote, he had money, it reeked off of him, end quote. At that point, people re-entered the room, no further information provided. A recalled a blonde, beautiful woman approaching her at some point that day. After her interaction with Trump, the woman said, quote, let me give you a tip, little girl, about your wear a bra every night, end quote. Those words have stayed with her throughout the years. So there, we could speculate, right? A beautiful blonde, Trump. I mean, there were plenty of them. I guess take your pick. But the more interesting thing is that there were other people in that room. This didn't happen in a vacuum. She wasn't by herself. She wasn't cornered in an empty room, you know, in some godforsaken warehouse in the middle of Brooklyn or whatever. She was in a tall building with very big rooms, and there were people there. So obviously, there were witnesses to this. There were people there, including this very beautiful blonde woman. So she goes on. A got the feeling the relationship between Epstein and Trump included a certain amount of jealousy. She thought Trump appeared jealous of Epstein, but at some point they ended up on level playing fields. Trump and Epstein sometimes used the terms, quote, fresh meat, quote, untainted, and, quote, not jaded while referring to girls. At the time she heard it, A did not understand the term not jaded. She subsequently looked up the word jaded. A stated she had 2 additional interactions with Trump, but she asked that the interview move on to a different subject for the time being. Super interesting because she has more things to say, but clearly did not feel comfortable enough at that point to say anything. Now, again, I believe this is her second interview. And I believe that at the first one, she alluded to this, but didn't go into details. Here she did. So it goes on now. Epstein spoke another language around A once in a while. She believed the language may have been Hebrew. I'm just reading what's written. At this point in the interview, A imitated the sound of the language that she recalled Epstein speaking, indicating it included a throat-clearing, guttural sound. She was unaware of whether Epstein was Jewish. She knew the language he spoke was not Italian. So we're getting more and more clues here as to who this woman is. And I'm not a person to out anyone, but there's plenty of things that we know about her already. About the island that she lived in, about she's probably Italian, about her mom being in real estate, her mom being arrested for embezzlement, her mom's connection to a man named Jim Atkins and another accountant named Cecil. It's a lot of information here, and all of these things can be looked up. Internet sleuths are good at that. And I don't think that anybody should out her, but I don't know. It's like if this woman could start opening up, you know, inroads to getting justice and and making sure that whoever was involved, whoever she knew was involved with whatever, her personally, that she could bring justice and bring back some semblance of normalcy to our nation. I mean, I'm not saying it's her responsibility. Obviously, she's been through enough, but you know, can't force her, but it would really make a difference. I don't know if she's hearing this, but just think about it. So, A asked the agents, the FBI agents, I'm assuming, to keep her safe, stating, quote, "Throughout my life, his, meaning Epstein's, people have found me and kept tabs on me." And this is going to go on because apparently for years, she had different, not only threats on the phone, but cars running her off the road, um, just a lot. So clearly she was afraid for her life, but let's continue. Okay, so as this is, I believe, the third interview, I want to say. I could be wrong because I'm reading these out of sequence. But again, I'm going to provide everything for you guys down below. You guys could read this yourselves and see what you think about it. Please let me know in the comments, if any of this has been helpful. I know when I was reading it, I was like, really? That's interesting. So I hope that you guys also consider it interesting. And if there are any internet sleuths out there that want to do some digging, you have plenty to go with. So um here we go. So I don't know what interview this is, but the interviewing agents asked A to provide additional details regarding her first interaction with Donald Trump when she was approximately 13 to 15 years old in either New York or New Jersey, and while also in the company of Jeffrey Epstein. A clarified that when she previously said that Trump struck her after she bit him, she provided further details that he, quote, pulled her hair and punched her on the side of her head, end quote. With respect to A's mother, and then they redacted the mother's name, and it says deceased. So her mom has passed. A recalled that her mother spent approximately 2 years in federal prison in Columbia, South Carolina, around the time A was 17 or 18 years old. A's mother's sentence was related to an embezzlement conviction connected to being blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein and Jim Atkins over explicit photographs of A. A asked whether Epstein had a sibling. The investigating agents inquired as to what made her think that he had a sibling. A replied she recalled that there was a man, possibly a brother of Epstein's, that she recalled from the past. Since her association with Epstein and all of the events that happened, A was threatened on numerous occasions by unidentified people she believed were connected to Epstein. A's mother was also threatened on numerous occasions prior to her death. The first incident A could recall occurred in approximately blank, and that's redacted. I don't see why that would be redacted. I mean, it's not like they're mentioning a person. So I can't imagine like what's in there that would be, would need to be redacted. But it is redacted. So the first incident A could recall occurred in approximately blank, redacted, when A was 16 to 17 years old. A was living in a suburb in South Carolina at the time. A's mother had been arrested for embezzlement and could not pay the restitution. A called Atkins at the university where he worked and to ask for help. She recalled she asked him why he, quote, fixed her mother's real estate books, only to later turn her mother in to the police. Atkins responded to A by stating the words to the effect that he did not, quote, give a crap if you end up in the gutter. Don't ever contact me again. Your mother knows what will happen, end quote. A recalled threatening telephone calls primarily began to occur after A gave birth to her daughter in, I don't know, a state, a city, I don't know, a year, I don't know. Several calls listed as no ID on her caller ID system were made to A's telephone. The voicemail content primarily included only noises. However, during one call, a man, unidentified, stated, F you, You better keep your mouth closed. End quote. The man subsequently hung up. A was threatened quote, sometimes every 2 years, then at random times, end quote. A never recognized the voices during the telephone calls, but she was certain that the callers were not Epstein, Atkins, or Trump. The callers did not have heavy New York accents. She clarified that Epstein did not have a heavy New York accent in general. However, he said certain words with an accent. In approximately, I don't know, it's redacted. I don't understand why this would be. In approximately blank redacted, A's mother fielded threat calls as well made by individuals telling her to leave the island blank blank. A's mother was most likely also threatened in person. However, A did not have specific information regarding any in-person threats. One of A's mother's previous husbands, see, more clues, redacted, also received at least one threatening call at some point. The last call that A characterized as threatening occurred in approximately December or January, year redacted. Why is the year redacted? Why are these years being redacted? These aren't victims' names. Why can't you give us the years? What's so pertinent about these years that we can't see? The last call that A characterized as threatening occurred in approximately December or January, redacted, the years redacted, while A was working at blank. A co-worker received a message on their work landline that was intended for A. The man on the message stated that he was either Kevin or Keith and that he was calling from A's doctor's office to check on her. A only listened for a second and did not hear the entire message. A's doctor had no idea where she worked and would never have called to check on her. A stated she told her daughter about the call, and her daughter subsequently called the doctor in an attempt to confirm the call to A. So at this point, so it must have happened not too long ago, because at this point her daughter's at least old enough to call a doctor and say, hey, did you call my mom? Hey, were you calling my mom's place of employment to check up on her? So clearly this was many, many years later, and they redacted the year, so we won't know. But it couldn't have been, it had to be like clearly not so long ago, right? If we do the math. So the doctor's office stated that they did not call to check on A. A told her boss that she had to take her daughter and leave immediately. A believed the incident to be threatening and related to Epstein and or his associates. A stated under her breath that if it was not Epstein, maybe it was, quote, the other one. When asked the identity of, quote, the other one, A stated, quote, Trump. If you guys don't think that this matters, you need to check your moral compass, or at the very least, your patriotism. Is this a man that you want leading you, your nation, into war, or making any sort of policy? Like what foot does he have to stand on? What is his credibility on the world stage if he is in fact involved in this stuff? This woman, I would imagine that right now she's pretty much afraid of being found out. But in my opinion, that's her only protection, to just come out. Because if she doesn't come out, it's just going to be worse. Threats are going to be, I don't even know if she's being threatened right now. I mean, I'm sure. Why wouldn't she be? Now all this stuff is coming out. She's probably scared for her life. She has kids, obviously. At least we know she has a daughter. So wouldn't it be safer for her to come forward and just state what she knows and at least get protection that way? Is what I'm hoping. That's what I would do. I mean, I obviously, I don't have a right to tell her what to do. None of us do. But makes sense. A was asked several times if she could estimate how many times she received threatening calls that she associated with Epstein and his associates. A could not provide an answer, indicating there were numerous threat calls throughout her life. In the beginning, the threats were, quote, regular. They later became sporadic, and a year would go by in between incidents. This is very typical of narcissistic abuse and and having someone in a constant state of anxiety, because anything that you do on a regular basis, a person, even something as bad as abuse, a person can get used to it. But when they never see it coming or they don't know when the next time's going to be, the anxiety is heightened because they could be in the middle of shopping, or it can be like on a random regular day that they're completely going to be blindsided. And that type of tactic is very, very powerful in abusive situations. A person can go dark, what they call going dark, for years and leave their victims alone. And that's all just part of the play, because the play is to come back to their victims' lives unexpectedly and terrorize them. Because, see, I can always get to you. Years can go by. You may have gone on with your life, but I can always get to you. So that to me makes a lot of sense. And this is very much, something that narcissists in particular love to do, because that's where they get their meaning, their rush, their identity. They get the power. They siphon off the power off of other people's fear. So having somebody afraid of you like that is like a rush to them. A recalled receiving several, quote, hangups and a lot of brief telephone messages that included words to the effect, quote, we know where you're at. You need to keep your mouth shut, end quote. Like I said, it's like this constant level of anxiety. Even if they never do anything, it's just keeping someone in that state of insecurity, of instability, and of vulnerability because they feel like they can be gotten to at any moment. The people who called knew that A's mother was in a specific assisted living facility. A initially stated the individuals, quote, possibly called her mother. But when asked how she knew they were aware of her mother's residence in a particular assisted living facility, A stated that they called her mother there. The calls to her mother included rude language about her mother's age and health. There's a lot of information, you guys. That I guarantee you there are people out there right now that know exactly who A is and can attest to this stuff because they were around her or her family or her mom during this time. And again, can't force anybody, but when asked what made A think the calls were related to Epstein/his associates, A responded that she did not think the callers ever said they were calling on behalf of Epstein or Trump. A does not have any other issues in her past that would explain years of harassment and threats. Since the threats began, A has had 4 to 5, quote, close calls where she was almost run off the road. 1 or 2 incidents occurred prior to, here we go again. This is redacted. Prior to what? Why can't we see what this is? I mean, I can obviously speculate that it has something to do with Trump. Does it say a particular moment in time? Does it say under this redaction? I'm just, assuming here because I have nothing else to go on, right? So, does it say 1 or 2 incidents occurred prior to Trump's election? Does it say 1 or 2 incidents occurred prior to Trump's inauguration? Does it say 1 or 2 incidents occurred prior to the Super Bowl? I don't think the Super Bowl's it. I think if it's redacted, it's because obviously it is, which doesn't make any sense because, or maybe it does. Trump's name is already here, but now they're redacting times and years because they don't want to what? Show how recent all this stuff was happening? I guess. I mean, what do you guys think? I don't know anything. I'm just assuming because what else am I supposed to do? Right? Maybe if they showed it, it wouldn't be a big deal. But the fact that they're hiding it makes it all worse. Anyway, so it's redacted. 1 or 2 incidents occurred prior to redacted, and 1 approximately 2 years ago. Now, this interview was made on 8/20/2019. So 2 years ago was 2017. So you do the math. During the blank incident, once again, redacted. Why? During the blank incident, A and her mother were driving one night on Interstate 5 near blank, Oregon. Why is this redacted? Is it because blank, Oregon has a specific tie to somebody else and can actually be looked? I don't know. You know, at this point, it's like, are they playing stupid games with us, just redacting like random stuff that doesn't even matter just to have us more confused than ever? Whatever. Like, fine, it's redacted. We can make up our own minds. Okay, so her mother were driving, A and her mother were driving one night on Interstate 5 near blank, Oregon. It was dark and rainy that night. One car behind A repeatedly turned its lights on and off. Then that car and another, both described as, quote, nice and black or blue. So it was two cars. One started, I guess, flashing his lights, and then another car started doing it. And they were both described as nice and black or blue. Attempted to run A's car off the road. The car to A's left was larger and had 4 doors. She recalled an 18-wheeler was driving in front of her at the time. A did not wreck her vehicle during the incident. After the incident, her mom began crying and A pulled over. This is horrific, you guys. This is like infuriating. Can you imagine you or a loved one, your sister, your mom, I mean, your God forbid daughter, your wife, any female in your life having to go through something like this? Like, this is nuts. During the last incident, which A clarified may have happened 2.5 to 3 years ago, she was driving on Interstate 5 toward her home in blank, Washington at approximately 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., day of the week unknown, when A took the first blank, redacted, exit near a gas station and traffic circle. A male driver positioned his car, quote, on her arse and, quote, slammed her car forward, end quote. The man ran A through the traffic circle where she blew out her tire and broke her mirror. She recalled she ran into a sign. The vehicle that struck her was a dark black or blue sports utility vehicle. A believed the driver to be male due to the shape of the body she saw in her mirror. She stated the man was, quote, maybe white. After A wrecked, she called a friend who lived nearby and told him she had no idea what happened. A did not call the police, and to her knowledge, no police responded to the hit and run. Employees unidentified from the Chevron or Shell gas station nearby, the first gas station on the left of the exit, witnessed the incident and asked her on a later date what happened to her car. Again, there are so many witnesses here, so many people that could corroborate all of these events. This is truly breaking, you guys. This is truly a massive crack in this investigation so far as her allegations against Donald Trump. This can all be corroborated. This can all be investigated, and it should. I don't think that Pam Bondi is going to do it. I sure don't think Kash Patel is going to do it, but we have tools on the internet. We can definitely do it. Whoever lives in Washington, whoever lives in Oregon, whoever were the employees from the Chevron or Shell gas station off of exit 5, off of Interstate 5, exit unknown. But if you saw it, you probably remember it because that's not something that you see every day, right? You don't see every day a large utility vehicle around 6 or 7 a.m. hit a car and push it into, the traffic circle, and she blows out her tire. I mean, these are things that you're going to remember. So those employees, they saw it. They can corroborate this stuff. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. And I know there's a lot more stuff that's going to be coming out in the upcoming days as more and more of us get on these files and focus on the big issue and aren't distracted by other things, no matter how much they're pushed in the media. I'm not saying that war doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, if it is a distraction, then let's remember what it could be distracting us from, and let's double down on it. I think that this is the time to go heavy on these files and start looking into these people and figuring it out for ourselves. And hopefully, maybe, who knows? Who knows? Maybe she will have a change of heart. Maybe she will suddenly be like, you know what? Everybody's putting it together already. I'm just going to come out. I'm just going to come out. I'm just going to testify. I have proof, whatever proof I have, and whatever proof can be gotten with all this information, which I'm sure is a lot. And I'm just going to say my piece and let the cards fall where they may. And I think that would probably be the smartest and the safest move, even for A and her family, because once they're known and out there, they can be protected. And yeah, you can obviously say, like, oh, well, Epstein was known and he wasn't protected. This is a completely different thing. You can say, well, Giuffre was known and she wasn't protected. There's a lot of questions about Giuffre's passing. I don't know that we 100% even know what actually happened there. I know we can speculate, and we have, but there's a lot of things that were happening also in her marriage. It's a lot. It's a mess. It's a mess. A lot of things could have been hidden in her passing. And if you look into her marriage and all the stuff that was going on with that, you might agree. So that's all I'll say about that. But this is what I wanted to share with you guys. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you want to see any of the videos from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, like I said, check it out. It's on my Patreon page, and I'll leave the link below, as I always do, in the description box. And yeah, let me know what you think, if this was useful, and anything that you've uncovered, or do you know these people, or are you one of these people? See you guys in the next vid.